Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions concerning this watch. Folks often ask me, Tim, if you were to recommend one watch to be just one watch in a collection, what would that model be? And I've often thought the Bremont Airco Mach1 is a great candidate. This model was originally launched in 2017 and it is packed with value. We'll talk about all those features, but fit comes first. So 40 millimeters in diameter in steel. It is 12.1 millimeters thick, and then from lug to lug to 48.6 millimeters with a fairly standard 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Bremont's case design, at least their traditional case design before the recent reboot, is well loved for breaking the lugs out from the case, so the lugs themselves don't appear to dominate the mass center of the watch the way, for example, something where everything is all of one form would visually extend the case. Believe it or not, this is only 1 millimeter larger than this, but the way the lugs are formed here, the mid-case and the lugs read quite differently. As a result, they also wear quite differently, and aesthetically, on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, you can see the AIRCO is a really nice match. The lugs are nicely tapered. They sort of wrap around the edge of my wrist. Over the top always exaggerates the width of a watch, so I always recommend, if you're doing this by yourself and you don't have a mirror, go down the barrel like that. And then you could see that the lugs are really not close to the edge. So if your wrist is 15 centimeters circumference or larger, game on. It's also a fairly thin watch, and with a sloped bezel, it will slide underneath the dress cuff. On an alligator leather strap, it certainly belongs, but take note, this is fake alligator. Now, of course, we can put this on a real leather strap, but if you want a price adjustment, I would actually recommend getting it from us on this strap. We often use fake gator when we have to ship watches between our international offices. I've grown accustomed to the fake leather on sports watches being the best of both worlds, because you wind up with this highly refined, grown-up aesthetic, but you can jump in the water at any time. And since this is a 100-meter water-resistant watch with a screw-down crown, and the strap is hand-cut and sewn by Jean Rousseau in Paris, why not? This is the OEM strap maker for FP Journe and De Bethune, and the strap's a really nice match. Trust me, your friends won't know the difference. The strap will last for a decade. You'll never have to swap out to go swimming, and it makes the watch that much more useful. Remember, I said just one watch. This strap might be just one strap. Taking a look at the buckle, typical Bremont buckle here. So you have a little bit of polish, a little bit of satin. You have the branding with the company's traditional propeller logo. And then I do like the fact that they elevate the bridge so that the strap sits flush inside the buckle rather than stacking up and adding height underneath. It's a small detail, but an important one. Taking a look at the case itself, again, we come back to the so-called triptych case construction, where the mid-case holding the dial and holding the movement is physically quite separate from the structure that encompasses the lugs. And you can probably see that best from underneath, where you'll be able to see that there's a little bit of daylight between the lug and the case right here. They are physically separate structures, and aesthetically and ergonomically, that works out really nicely. The interior concave of the lugs underneath is also very attractive. The mid-case is DLC, so not only does it offer a nice tonal contrast, but it is very, very scratch resistant. The rest of the case uses a combination of satin finish and a little bit of polish, and Bremont uses a heat treating process that really hardens the face of the steel that's used. So it's stainless steel, but there is a surface layer that is exceptionally hard, and that doesn't make the watch invulnerable. You can see, particularly if there is a hard impact at a point, you could still wind up with a little divot, but what you generally won't see are scratches or scuffs, and that's the real advantage of this hardening. So they tend to be quite resistant against scratching and scuffing. Now, about the propeller, Nick and Giles English, who are the founders of Bremont, they are aviation enthusiasts and engineers, and they fly vintage aircraft, and maybe it's apocryphal, but it's a wonderful story. Once upon a time, they emergency landed a vintage aircraft in a French farmer's field. He was hospitable, and so Bremont was his name, and Bremont is the name of the watch. I guess if you want to be precise, it would be Bremont, but Bremont is the anglicized pronunciation, and I did ask them about that. So taking a look at the inner chaptering, you can see we have this lovely inner chaptering with alternating red and white numerals, so seconds and minutes to be read against that scale. We have a sort of instrument-style 1940s aesthetic, the kind of thing you might have seen on a pilot's watch built between 1940 and 1950. It's got a very strong mark-style overtone, too. And then we have this lovely railroad-style track for minutes and seconds, as well as a little lacquered tip on the syringe-style minutes. We have syringe-style hours as well. Take a close look. You can see these hands are brushed for a satin matte finish that matches the dial well in its anti-glare aesthetic. We have this lovely orange arrow, counterweighted seconds hand, and we'll do a loom shot here so you can see exactly what you're getting from that standpoint. It is quite well loomed, as we have all three hands plus the numerals plus the indices, so no shortage in that regard. Now, the watch is made in London, though the movement is of Swiss origin. The watch is actually made in the greater London metropolitan area. It's the best way to describe it. You can see we have a stop seconds function because underlying all this, we have a chronometer grade ETA 289282, and that movement features hacking seconds. Now, we also have a quick set mechanism, so you can rapidly cycle the date should the watch run down or encounter an irregular length month. It is a handy feature to have, and I have to say that the crown, when withdrawn, is quite robust. It doesn't have a lot of wobble to it. It feels like a well-assembled watch. On the reverse side, there is some custom decoration here. We have some snailing, engine turning, and stripes, but the finishing on this movement is mechanical. However, you can see that it is a high-grade 289282, so chronometer certified, adjusted in 5 positions, and 21 joules, 4 hertz beat rate. It's got the 42-hour power reserve, a couple of polished and a couple of blued screws. Again, this is not artisanal finish, but it is an attractive execution that makes the movement pleasant to behold. 2892A2, a very accomplished timekeeper, very similar to what you would find on a 1990s James Bond Omega Seamaster, and there is lots to love. The watch is super versatile, both in size and in style, and with chronometer-grade timekeeping and a ton of water resistance and loom for days, this is a watch you can be very comfortable calling your one and only. And hey, Bremont, one of the coolest and most accessible ways to get into British watchmaking in the modern era. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.